Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by Max Phelps, guitarist and vocalist of the band Exist and Death to All. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! What's going on, caffeinated crew? Today, joined by Max, plays in a few bands, Death to All, Exist. You were in Cynic.
Yeah, kind of on off.
Yeah. So there's a few things there. How are you doing?
Good, man. How about yourself?
Good. I love whenever we chat before we start recording, and then we have to do the how are you, and then we have to do it again. Like nobody knows that we just got on a call or something like that. So.
Right. They still don't know. So
they have no idea how long we talked before.
Yeah, don't spill the beans on it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I might have to use my first time using like a laugh track there, like a friend style hardy har.
Sick, dude.
We should bring soundboards in. Like, I feel like the interview format can be sometimes too serious. We should start bringing soundboards in.
Yeah, you should. You could do anything you want. Air horns.
Like shock jock fart jokes and stuff.
Ambulance, anything.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to be talking to you today. First things first, do you have any coffee with you?
I do. I made a espresso right before. Oh. Yeah. So it's just like we have like a pretty good espresso machine. I wouldn't call myself like a coffee nerd necessarily, because I feel like I don't know enough, you know. But yeah, we have a pretty good machine, and I mean, this is like a mom's grocery store blend I'm drinking, but we get like these other companies sometimes. And the big thing that I realized, that somebody who I've talked to who does know a lot about coffee, we don't have like a good grinder, which I guess maybe in the signal chain is kind of backwards, you know. So I've been recommended one that I just haven't gotten for 6 months or whatever, but it's on the list of things to do.
I will be very honest with you. The grinder does make like a huge difference, especially I make mostly filter, like hand pour coffees. And so the most expensive part of that is the grinder. And you can get like a decent kettle that does the slowy gooseneck thing.
Right.
But right now my kettle is the most expensive part, and I should probably upgrade the grinder as well. But
nice.
It's either like get rid of something that you have for something better, or get like a whole new thing. So
sure.
That's the bargain that you have to make.
Right. Yeah, I can see where it's a rabbit hole. I feel like it's a rabbit hole I could go down. I'm not quite there, but I've always liked coffee a lot, at least through my whole adult life, and now I'm mostly just drinking espresso these days, I guess, because of that. That's like our main thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
is it like a manual? You got to push tamp the coffee and put it in, or?
Yeah, it's a Breville Bambino.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Those are good little machines.
Yeah. But again, like this guy I was talking to, actually, you should get this guy on this. The band Invent Animate.
Yeah.
So I don't know Keith and their guitarist well, but he was the one who, he's like really far down the rabbit hole of coffee stuff. The Exist drummer plays with him in that band, and so yeah, he was the one that was kind of like telling me about the grinder thing, and he was talking about how he's to the point where it's like he'll adjust the parameters on the espresso machine, and he'll like make a whole bunch of cups to figure out exactly what his like ratio. Yeah, he's really far down it, so that's probably a guy you should get on a podcast like this.
So that guy should never work in coffee, because he will stop doing that when he has to do it like for a job.
Sure.
But I used to be very much like that, where it's like I'd have I would do my own home cuppings where you like have like 3 or 4 different cups of coffee, like just to like sip out of a spoon, and then you write down the
Sure.
different notes. I don't do that anymore because I roast coffee. So everything I own smells like roasted coffee beans.
Is that your main thing? Like, do you have like a I didn't do my research clearly, but
It's fine. It's right now so I'm doing like managing for a coffee shop, but I'm
cool.
working directly with like the guy who owns the roaster and the shop, and the roaster recently left like about a month ago.
Uh,
So he and I have been kind of swapping off roasting duties
gotcha.
and producing, because we have some wholesale clients and like grocery stores. A few grocery stores sell our coffee as well, so we have quite a bit of weekly like wholesale stuff we have to do, and it's not enough. It's too much for just one person.
Sure.
So he and I just
I
kind of
bet I bet that's a hard business. Like I bet that's because it's a niche thing, where there's like a ton of roasters, right? And I'm sure you've got like kind of your, it's maybe it's like metal a little bit, and where you've got like kind of your hardcore people they know everything, but it's very I don't know. That would just be my guess. I would guess that that's like a hard thing to build.
it's interesting culturally because Montreal is very much like a coffee city, but it's also like a European coffee city, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Where a
It is
lot
a
of people,
pretty European feeling city in general. Yeah, so that makes sense.
yeah. So like people are very loyal to their like borough or their neighborhood. And the roaster is in a neighborhood that was a town until maybe 20 years ago. It was its own city,
Oh, interesting.
and then joined Montreal as a neighborhood in like the early 2000s, I believe, or maybe even the 90s. But people who live in that neighborhood are like loyal to those businesses that exist.
No.
So in that sense is very good. But then there's also, crazy coffee weirdos that drink a different coffee every week,
me.
like me, where I have a different roaster for every episode, and the financial investment is completely out of control at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have all kinds of people here, which is great. So, but yeah, now everything smells like coffee, and like it's almost like a nightmare Groundhog Day where every coffee tastes the same at this point.
Oh, because you've just been doing that so much.
It's not that. It's like unless I drink something extremely different, I kind of get like this weird, like almost nauseous feeling.
Because you've just had too much of it.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's the paradox of doing what you love.
Don't do what you love. Do what you hate.
I don't know. You got it.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm drinking a different coffee today, not the one that I roast, because I drink that too much. This is called DAC. It's from Amsterdam, but it's started by 2 people from Montreal that moved there.
Oh, interesting.
And it's got like a really cool little hipster looking
Drawings.
box. Yeah, but this is their fluffy peach. It's an Ethiopian coffee, and it tastes like white peach, milky oolong tea, and like floral kind of flowery notes.
Oh, cool.
So it's very refreshing.
How does somebody flavor the beans to be like that? Like what's the process of that? Like how does that work?
That's a wonderful question.
Yeah.
So you know how some coffee's flavored, like they flavor blast it?
Right.
So whenever we talk about notes in coffee like that, it's not so much that it's flavored, it's the type of, a lot of it has to do with where it's grown.
Uh-huh.
And then it's also what they call different varieties. So you have like, you've heard Arabica coffee. That's like the majority of good coffee.
Wait, what is it?
So when you go to like McDonald's and on the cup, it says like 100% Arabica.
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. Yeah.
So that's just like that's so it's genus and then species. There's like 3 main species of coffee plant. Arabica is the one that has the most flavor that we recognize.
Gotcha.
There's Robusto, which is a bigger, more like resilient bean. A lot of it's grown in Southeast Asia, like the not Pacific, but Indian Ocean region.
Okay.
And a lot of very traditional coffee, or like Death Wish coffee that's quote
Yeah.
unquote more caffeinated. Yeah.
Too much.
That's Robusto. And
Okay.
it's just that they'll do a lot of flavoring and they'll roast it a lot to where it just tastes like really nutty caramel, because that coffee doesn't necessarily taste as good, but it's
Right.
got more caffeine.
By itself, I got it. So they're modifying it more.
Right.
Yeah.
But like Arabica coffee, you have different varieties. So you'll have something called like a Caturra or a Castillo or like a Caduai, a Bourbon. And these are all different varieties of Arabica coffee that are just grown in different regions. So like Brazil has certain ones that grow really well there. Colombia has certain ones that grow there. And then all over Central America, like Sumatra has its own kind of vibe. And then Ethiopia is where coffee's from. And
Right.
so they have what you'll read as like SL28 or heirloom varieties. And heirloom is like, there's just thousands of different types of varietals that have grown in certain regions.
Gotcha.
And that's what creates taste, essentially.
But those are just, so it's not actually anything to do with those as like ingredients. It's just more that like, comparison of kind of okay,
Yeah,
got it.
it's like a note, like you know when you drink like a scotch or something, and it's like it has like a vanilla note, or like a what's another note besides vanilla? I don't know, cherry. And it has to do with like the kind of peat or whatever they make the scotch with. That's kind of the same thing.
Gotcha. Okay. All right, that makes sense. I didn't know that. I
Sorry
didn't
for
know.
the deep dive nerdy.
I don't know. That's it's actually interesting. Like I don't know anything about. I drink a lot of coffee, but I don't. And I buy coffees like that sometimes, and I'll look at it and I'll be like, oh, that sounds good, but I didn't actually know. What
Yeah.
So that is.
It's cool when you like, and then you'll find out like there's also different processes. So like washed and natural, like how they actually like clean the seed out of the coffee cherry has to do with some of that flavor as well.
Cool.
But then they have like all these experimental ones that it's too much for me to go into, where they like ferment the seed inside of the cherry for a certain amount of hours and stuff like that. And that just makes it taste like Skittles. It's really crazy. Yeah. But do you live near Brandywine Roasters?
Where is that? I'm in Baltimore, but Brandywine is like kind of a little southern Maryland, I think. Or am I mistaken?
I'm not sure. I don't know the geography that well. I know Brandywine is from Maryland, and I can't remember if it's near Baltimore.
Let me look it up. I know. Yeah, I'm trying to think. Do I know that one? I guess I don't, because I'm questioning it. Oh, it looks like they're from Wilmington, Delaware. But which is, that's right up the street, so it's not.
Oh, that's my bad. I could have sworn that they were from.
That's like an hour. That's like an hour away. So they probably have a presence here, I would assume.
A lot of my Baltimore friends love Brandywine.
Okay, I don't think I've tried it, but I'll write that down and check that out. There's some good ones around. I don't know which of these are like local, but like Black Acres is a really good one.
Okay.
Zeke's is like our famous one. Ceremony, I don't know if Ceremony has a.
Ceremony is amazing.
Is that everywhere, or is
No.
that I think they're Baltimore based?
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Ceremony a lot. Ceremony, Black Acres. Yeah, Zeke's is right down the street from where I live, so that's a famous one. La Colombe, I think they're from Philly, but that's one that we like a lot. Yeah,
Get
that one.
the latte on tap.
Is that what's that? Is that like the?
Yeah, they have like the cold brew and all that on tap, but then you can get a latte that's like it's on tap and they just pour it into a cup. It's good.
Cool.
But Ceremony, I got sent some coffee from a Baltimore buddy. A lot of good coffee. He sent me some Ceremony, and I was like, oh man, I really wish I lived near this.
Yeah, Ceremony's they have a few good locations too, and yeah, like kind of cool shops, and yeah, and that's in like all our grocery stores here too. They have
Man.
Yeah.
That's like counterculture was big in the Carolinas.
Yeah, that's right. We have that too. But yeah, that's not from here originally, is it?
It's from Durham, North Carolina.
There's a lot of places here that use it. Like a lot of restaurants use it. I
The
like that
first
one
cafe,
too.
the first cafe I ever worked in, like over 10 years ago, that was a counterculture shop, but that was in Savannah, Georgia.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen an actual shop of theirs, but yeah, a lot of just restaurants and places that here seem to have it. So
It's good quality coffee.
we buy that one sometimes. My wife thinks it's a little too like acidic, or like she
Yeah.
get a lot.
The fruitier, the better for me. But yeah, it's more acidic, so it hurts your stomach sometimes.
Sure.
Did you just get off tour?
So we did like a mini tour with Exist. Like we did like 4 days. So that was about I guess it was like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Yeah. So there, like we did like New York, Pittsburgh, and then Washington D.C. and Baltimore, which is the home show for us.
Nice. What was I think? Oh, the Death to All tour y'all did was pretty long.
That was a long one. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was like 45 days, or so it was 6 weeks, or maybe even 7 weeks. It was like May into basically it ended the first day of July, I think. So
My
mid.
God.
So yeah. Do you play? Or are you like, you're a musician too, or?
Yeah, I sing in a hardcore band, and I play drums in another band that's kind of like just it's friends, and we only play locally, really.
Sick. Yeah, that's
And,
cool.
My wife and I have a death metal project that we're basically gonna put out as soon as it gets mastered.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's for fun. That's super fun.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
But I saw the Death to All show here at Corona or Beanfield, but it's been Corona for forever.
Right. I think it was Corona like a year ago when we were there.
Yeah.
Maybe that's not a good name anymore.
No, I mean, well, maybe not, but like the rename is because this telecom company bought it.
Oh.
And they renamed it Beanfield, which is like the worst name I've ever heard for a theater.
Sure.
So we all call it Corona still. I work for the promoter that like put that show on and puts on a lot of the like metal shows and stuff here, the Extensive Enterprise.
Okay.
And so everybody that like whenever we're talking about that venue, we still call it Corona.
Sure.
Because it's sentimental.
Sure. You've been there for a long, because I feel like 2023 might have been the first time I played it, or it's maybe not. I don't know. But I know we played it in 2023. Maybe I was there at an earlier time. But is that? I mean, it's obviously an old building. Like, has that been there for a long, long time? Like, as that venue?
Dad, like that concert venue's been there for a very long time, and before that, it was like an early 20th century movie theater.
Okay.
So a lot of those smaller theaters in Montreal used to be like old school movie theaters where they would have like the pianist that would play along or whatever with the moving picture from the 20s. So there's a lot of those, which is very cool because where I'm from, we have like 2 theaters and they're kind of not historic. Like one of them is and one of them isn't.
Right.
So it's cool to live in a place that has all these like old, kind of still restored, but still looks old theaters.
Yeah. The shows are always really good there too. Like, I feel like the vibe is always just like, yeah, it's always like a pretty crazy, you guys go hard.
Yeah. The Montreal loves metal. Like it's a crazy metal city, which is very cool. It translates in the hardcore scene too, where you get a lot of people that come from like death metal or even like deathcore sometimes.
Yep.
And it's weird to see the acclamation from like very, very metal, like push moshing style. And then they see like karate for the first time.
Sure.
And then it's interesting to see them be like, I don't like this. And then within a year, they're Karate Kid as well. So it's very fun.
Yeah, it's like an aesthetic thing that's kind of superficial in a way, or just we do this over here, we do that over here. But
It's such a stupid line. Like, just cross it. It's fine. We all, like, hardcore people love death metal, and
sure,
there's something for death metal people in hardcore as well, because it's
totally.
only aggressive music.
I feel like I
So
need more hardcore in my list.
if you need a list, just go through I'm just go through the episodes that I've done.
Okay, right. Right. Is that when you pull in like more hardcore bands, you think?
It's been like that recently. I've been getting shit from people being like, you need more metal, you need more metal. I'm like, I understand that I need more metal, but right now I live in a hardcore world. So
Right.
and it's also hardcore is like very hyped.
Sure.
Which is cool.
Not loose and
Turnstile.
Yeah, turnstile.
Baltimore.
I'm an outsider. I have no gripe with that. I think all that stuff's sick.
It's
But
cool.
Yeah.
Even Trapped Under Ice is like one of my favorite bands.
I mean,
And they're from Baltimore, and they have such a unique sound. Like, it's unmistakable when you hear it. And
that's what it's a name I hear all the time, and I confess I haven't. I didn't know they were from Baltimore either. So
now you have even more reason to check
Right.
them out.
right.
But tell me, like, when you were a kid, what was playing?
Like I guess when I discovered metal, or just kind of from the get go, or
It could be like what were your parents into, and how did that push you to finding metal?
well, my parents listened. They did listen to music. They had a few kind of like cassettes that they would play on repeat. My mom would like play the White Album by the Beatles a lot, so the Beatles are definitely a big one for me, and still are. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they would play like that and Michael Jackson. They had like a cool vinyl collection, but a lot of it was stuff I never really discovered through them. It was like stuff I found later, and then I was like looking through the collection. I'm like, wait, you guys know this? Like, what? Just like a lot of cool jazz stuff. And I mean, I guess I think my parents did show me like Mahavishnu Orchestra, and my dad had like an Al Di Meola album that he would play. So there was some stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know how much that was directly what got me like into music. I think the biggest thing for me was I had a friend, a very close friend, my best friend, who he started playing guitar, and he was really into like classic rock stuff and the Beatles and Hendrix, and then and I didn't really have much of a like, I didn't have any intentions, but it was just one of those things he did. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I guess I'll try it. And then it just became something that I think, because it was a little more of like an independent sort of pursuit, than a lot of things when you're a kid, maybe where it's like, sports are more of a team thing, or this is, I think I was kind of drawn to that, or it just felt like it was something that I could kind of do on my own and do it on my own terms. And I wasn't really comparing myself to anybody. And at some point it just crept up on me. I had a very good first teacher, too, which, he was inspiring and always showed me a lot of cool music. So yeah, I guess it just kind of snowballed from there, from something that was kind of, no real intentions, just, oh, I guess that's a kind of a cool thing to try. And then it was crept up on me that, oh, okay, this is like kind of what you do. This is replaced video games, or replaced anything else that you might do when you're just kind of like by yourself in your room.
Yeah, and I'm sure you've had the same experience, but like when all your friends are talking about, playing PS3 online or something when you were growing up.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't even have time for that. Like I'm playing drums 3 hours a day.
Sure. I mean, I did that too, but it was, there was some point around like age 16 or 17 where I remember just kind of realizing that it wasn't even like a conscious decision. It was just like, oh, I guess I don't, I'm not paying attention to that as much. And I don't, I don't feel the desire to do it as much. I actually like just started playing games again like a year ago for the first time in my adult life. It's kind of more like a nostalgia trip than anything, but it is, the time thing is kind of, I don't know if I'm that prone to getting like addicted just because I feel like I get stir crazy if I do it too much, and then.
Yeah. I've thought about getting into games, and then I like talk about it, and my wife is like, "There's no way you're gonna have time. Like, how are you gonna?" And then you bring it
Yeah.
home, and we're gonna get too competitive, and then we're gonna like fight. And I was like, yeah, you know what? Those are all valid reasons for me not to spend $1,000
Right.
on like a console. I can spend that $1,000 on new gear or
Right. Yeah.
some.
No, it's definitely it's definitely kind of a waste, but it's also like I don't know. It's I don't do it too much. It's like maybe an hour, just 2 or 3 times a week that it's kind of just like a decompression thing. So it's I don't know. The games it's cool. I guess it's cool maybe for just generationally because a lot of the games are sort of the same games. So it's like I'm playing like those Zelda games right now.
Oh yeah, nice.
It's like a little bit of like mind blown sort of thing because I played the N64 ones. So that leap is kind of cool, I guess. But yeah, they're definitely a slippery slope in terms of the time thing for a lot of people, I think.
Yeah, that's what I worry about. I have like
I think you're like missing out on much by not doing it.
right. It's like I know if I start doing online with friends.
That I don't do. That I won't fuck with because it's got to be on my own terms. It's got to be like, it's got to be a thing that I can just like, oh, okay, I'm kind of like done my work for the day. I'm going to cut myself off. Let me just do something stupid that doesn't have anything to do with anything.
Yeah, I think that is probably a good way to do things.
Yeah.
Like I've thought about reading, but sometimes it's like too much for me to try to get. It feels like too much of a chore, I feel like.
Sure. I will say that's the better one, like, before you go to bed.
Yeah.
I think, like, there's something about it, like, it helps you go to sleep easier versus, like, there's something about looking at a screen. Or games, too, like, they can get intense, so I don't know if that's always, like, the best thing if you're trying to...
I know that's a little bit about what the newer Exist album, it seems to be about.
Sure.
Those kinds of things.
Sometimes, yeah.
Which we can get into in a bit. But in terms of like writing for a lot of the prog, because most of the things, if not all of the bands that you've played with or involved in are very like proggy, I would say, like prog tech metal and stuff like that. And how much of like early learning was there with jazz as well?
I started studying jazz when I was like 19 years old.
Okay.
Around 19 years old. And it was because I went to school for a semester and then I kind of didn't know what I was doing. And I had this realization of like, okay, well, I think, I sit around and I play guitar all day, but I don't, so it seemed like, okay, well, I shouldn't be in school right now. I should, because it's a lot of money. It seems like a waste of resources if you're not really like adamant about what you're doing. And I was, I was 18 years old. So I'm like, well, this just seems like a mistake right now. So I dropped out. I worked in a warehouse for a few years. And that's when I started studying jazz with the intention of like, okay, well, maybe I can do the music school thing, but I never had like the formal training before that. So that was kind of where my journey began with that, was around that age.
So you did go to music school though?
I did briefly, but
okay.
Yeah, I was only there for a semester because like I went to community college for a year before that and did some music there. But then, yeah, when I actually went there, I got the Senate gig like kind of shortly after, and so then I ended up just dropping out again for that.
Sorry.
And from there, I studied privately. I studied privately with a lot of teachers. So the jazz thing is more like, that's probably where more of my formal training comes from.
But you read as well.
I do, yeah. Not as well as I'd like to, but I can get by with stuff. Yeah, I'm trying to up my game with that right now.
That's every single person that I've met that's like, oh yeah, I read, but not as well as I want to. Like,
isn't that like everything?
It literally is everything.
Yeah.
There's one of the people that I work with. She's been taking drum lessons for maybe about a year, which is very cool. And she was like, do you still feel like you could be better? And I was like, I mean, yeah. And I feel like if you reach a point where you don't feel like that anymore,
Yeah, it's probably a bad.
something, yeah, something's wrong. Like something's very wrong.
Well, or you're just not into that anymore, or you're not into that aspect of that. You know, you could maybe you're just into writing, or maybe you're yeah, or maybe you're checked out. I don't know, but there's
Checked out.
I mean, yeah, it's always obviously it's one of those things that the more you do it, the more expansive it gets, you know, and the
Right.
more directions there kind of are to go. And I mean, I think that's kind of the beautiful thing about it is like, you know, for me, I'm like, I don't see any point where I'll get tired of working on music. If I'm tired or something, or I'm frustrated with something, there's so many other directions to go in. And usually, if I just pivot a little bit, it's like I'm occupied completely with something else. So, um, yeah, you know, I think that's kind of one of the best things about it is it's like you can spend your whole life on it and it just keeps going and there's always something to do. There's always many things to do.
Yeah. Like I feel like it's hard to reach a limit like in music because there is like maybe if you don't want to even play music for a bit, you can still get on technical side. So you can like get into production or you can, like you said, even get into writing where you just write
Yep.
and like do that for people.
Yep.
And it's
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, totally. It's I don't know, it never gets old to me.
That's cool. I like figuring out like you can kind of tell by how people play. Like, oh, this metal musician has jazz background, which I feel like in Prague that's literally 99% of the people have some sort of jazz background.
It's increasingly common for sure. Like I feel like now it's a lot more normal. Yeah.
Just like you can hear when somebody has like a church drumming background or a church musician background,
Sure. Yeah,
especially gospel
drummers, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah, the linear thing.
I love it. Just sixes. Like, how are you moving sixes like that across the kid? I don't understand. Oh, I played in church. That's why. Yeah, but that's very cool. Like I said, like even on listening through like the Exist catalog, it's so much. Like I'm listening, I'm like, this is just jazz with distortion.
Thanks,
It's
man.
crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, no way. I mean, I guess we've kind of, you know, started pivoting more towards just like tighter songwriting. And it's, you know, like when you started out, it was more about like improvising. And, you know, we had these kind of longer improv passages. And and we had a way of playing together that had a fluidity to it, which was really cool with that, you know, and that was just the result of us like being in a room every week and, you know, doing the regular band practice. And as we've gotten older, it's not as possible to do that, especially with like members being remote, and it's become more about this kind of tight songwriting. But you know, the harmony's still there, and obviously, like I think, there's a lot of stuff from that's just in the DNA where it's like, you know, I don't really think we even think about it too much. It's just that seems to be the natural kind of way that things flow.
I even love like the contrasting of the melodies where you'll have a guitar lead and then you'll have another guitar lead, but that lead is the melody that the vocals are singing.
Sure.
But then it'll carry through the song. It's very, very cool. Like it'll revisit where you'll have like a distorted vocal singing with that melody at some points, like rhythmically matched, but it's just like very, it's got so many different layers, which is really cool.
Yeah, we always tried to think about like motifs, you know, like in terms of, on the older stuff, I think sometimes it was even too much where we'd have too many of these kind of themes in one piece maybe, but yeah, we'll try to kind of take themes and think about like developing them versus it just being like riff. There's like, you know, you try to bring things back, or you try to kind of like take something and bring it back with like a different harmony, and a lot of times that's written more in a way where maybe there's like sort of an arc, like there's this high point that's actually kind of the destination, and then it's like, okay, well, how do you take that idea and sort of sneak it in there to work your way up to that versus it just be. So that's sometimes how we've kind of thought about those things or approached those things. But thanks. I appreciate you saying that, because that's definitely something we work on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's very challenging. Like most of the music that I'm involved in writing follows more of a pop song structure for sure. Even if it's aggressive, like, you know, there's always that like kind of verse chorus structure.
Yeah, that's kind of what we're trying to do now. Honestly, that's kind of where I mean, that's really fun in itself too. I feel like there's a challenge that comes with that. That's actually like, I think that might actually to really do that well. I think is harder.
In a sense, yeah, because you want to write, like you want a revisiting hook that people remember that captures like the
Yep.
attention. And I do like for me, because I feel like I came from church and I come from like even jazz, like I'm used to hearing these like recurring hooks in a song and be like, oh, that's the hook. And then you've got like a verse that maybe is one way, and then your verse B is a variation, but it's still the same.
Sure.
But like I have seen that in aggressive music, a lot of bands do struggle with a like a traditional like intro verse chorus, like
Yeah.
even chorus A chorus B situation, because they want to just throw as many riffs at the wall as they can.
Well, I think also, I mean, I think maybe it also goes back to, because one of the cool things about like, like metal and death metal and there kind of aren't as many rules. And so I think when you're coming from that place of like doing that against the frame of reference of that, that's actually one of the really exciting things about that.
Right.
But I would almost say that, in some ways, people being sick of those formats, I think it's sometimes because those formats are actually harder to execute well. Like
Hot take.
no, I do think that. I think like and yeah, you hear all this kind of pop songwriting that's like that, but yeah, to do that well in a way that actually excites you, I think that's harder, than just having open landscape. And I think both of those things are cool, and I think it's cool that metal you have the ability to, you can do whatever the fuck you want basically, and you could kind of throw the rules out completely. But yeah, it's hard to make a good pop song.
It is hard to make a good pop song.
Yeah,
We'll have that on the record.
everything's more camp. Like you can't you can't stretch those ideas as much. The ideas have to be the shit right from the get go.
Yeah, like you've got to have that idea has got to be like locked, or else the whole thing's just kind of loose and it feels contrived. And
Yeah.
Whenever I go to the gym, I hear like what's playing, what's popular before I put my AirPods in and turn them on active noise canceling. And it's interesting to hear the same ideas that have been repeated for the last 30 years, but they're still successful because it's the same people writing the songs for different faces.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a few of those that are pretty identifiable, I guess, a few of those producers that
Yeah. That Death to All tour that we were talking about, what was one of the highlights that you had?
I mean, I thought like just playing The Sound of Perseverance all the way through was cool. That was because we haven't really played a lot of stuff from that album. It's always kind of been this thing that because of, I guess, the drum parts and just kind of who's been involved with the project, it's I feel like it's been overlooked a little bit. And for me, it's always been a favorite. So I think just playing those songs and playing that album all the way through kind of was a highlight. Because it ended up, once we got it locked in enough, it was like really, really fun. As far as like memorable shows, I don't know, New York was awesome. Montreal was really awesome. I mean, it was a lot of shows, so I guess it's, and a lot of times that we were in the same place, like 2 nights in a row, which was kind of, so yeah, off the top of my head, I'm sure there probably are like things I'm just like not thinking of right now in terms of like events or whatever. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing was pretty good.
Do you have like a worst food?
Worst
memory?
food
Yeah.
on that tour?
Yeah.
Like something I ate that just was terrible? Or
Yeah, we all know there's like cities that just notoriously have shit food.
I gotta look at the dates to like read. Let's see. Because I'm sure there's an answer. I just have to like. It's like if I think of this on the fly.
I see.
Worst food.
That's right. That was with Cryptopsy.
Yeah. Um.
Oh, y'all played Columbus. That could rank probably.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Not
No,
no
they
no.
actually. You know what? Columbus had this really good taco place walking distance from the venue.
Okay.
Walking distance ish. You know, it
Mhm.
was maybe that's questionable to some people, but Bobby and I walked pretty far to go there, and we ended up we loved it. Yeah, they have these killer al pastor tacos, so that
That's
wasn't
sick.
good. Um, yeah, I don't know what the worst food was. I feel like Yelp and other things kind of help make that avoidable. You know?
Honestly, we're not in pretty any bad cities.
Yeah. Um, yeah,
Like
I
I
don't
think
know.
maybe Milwaukee would be could be
They had a
sus.
they had a cool food court that's like it's like a convention center that's
Right.
right where we were staying. So that was pretty good. Um,
I'll be honest with you. There's a bit of when it comes to like Ontario. There's like
uh
this rivalry between Montreal and Toronto,
that makes sense.
and so I find myself never having like good meals in Toronto.
I know.
Yeah.
But okay. Well, that was kind of what did we get in Toronto? We got like
Or even London, Ontario. I've
we
played
got some
there.
we got some Jamaican in Toronto that didn't. It wasn't like terrible. It just wasn't. You know, it was kind of like
But
London, Ontario. Everything was closed there. Everything was
that's what it's because the music hall's on that one downtown like street where it's essentially abandoned.
yeah. Yeah, there was. I went in Popeyes. That's what I did that day.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, well, it was. You know what to expect, I guess.
It's Canadian Popeyes. It's
The Popeyes itself. No, I think that's better though, dude.
no way.
Yeah, I think so. Because you guys have tighter food regulations.
That's
So
true.
I've noticed like Subway, for example. If I eat Subway in Canada, it's I just feel like I'm eating like real food. Like it feels, and I've noticed that even with like McDonald's. I've noticed, yeah. So I think that actually makes things kind of seem a little better quality. I'm sure it's like a little more expensive to make, but yeah, I don't know. It's just something I've noticed. So I don't know if I don't remember the Popeyes being too different. I remember the Popeyes itself was a little apocalyptic, but I don't
That's
think
just London.
right. But I think the food was okay, you know, or it was what you expect from that. It's
My
not
main gripe,
like every day, you know.
yeah. My main gripe with Popeyes in Canada is no sweet tea. I'm from Georgia, and that seems
Okay.
like a crime.
Yeah, I see. I can't. I'm not a sugar and drink kind of. Like I get kind of. So I'm not a sweet tea guy. Like
Okay.
or I like plain iced tea,
Right.
which is hard to get in any place like that, I guess. Uh, well,
They
maybe
love it here.
maybe the sweet tea. It probably goes back to the food regulations, and there's probably
Yeah.
just poison enough in that sweet tea that you guys aren't allowed to drink it. So poor you.
Listen, I should have the freedom to poison my body with.
Yeah.
No, I'm just
Yeah,
kidding.
that's fair. That's fair. You know,
We're crossing some weird political lines here.
I mean, maybe just put the right warnings on it. You know, like cigarettes or something. I think that's fair.
Anthony Bourdain would disagree with those regulations. So
With the regulations being a thing.
as tight, yeah, he'd be like,
Yeah.
you should be able to eat whatever you want. But that's Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah. I don't have a strong opinion on that. Other than that, sometimes maybe I don't know. I just notice it when I'm in Canada or Europe. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, it seems like the food might be a little better, and sometimes that's kind
the
of
the fast food is better. But yeah, tell me about hijacking the zeitgeist.
sure. I mean, I guess in some ways, going back to the pop structure thing, that's like us kind of maybe going a little closer to that. You know, it's probably still pretty out there for a lot of people, but there was a little, you know, there was a kind of a conscious effort to, okay, could we kind of take that exist sound and work it into a format that's a little more like that, and it ended up being really, really fun to make as a result, and probably something that we don't have any rules for ourselves necessarily, but I feel like that's probably the general direction that we're going in. Maybe the aesthetics would change, but I like kind of doing that kind of songwriting. So yeah, I mean, I guess we moved to 7 strings and dropped the tuning down a whole step. So lower tuning stuff, a little I guess heavier on the surface in some ways, which was a conscious effort. And kind of something we always thought about doing, but just, never were, like, I'd never been a 7 stringer before that. So it was just more out of kind of the convenience of like, okay, well, this is what I play. This is what I do. So yeah, I I guess that's the synopsis of it, like in terms of process, maybe.
The noticeable thing, well, I didn't even know about the drop tuning and the 7 strings, and that definitely explains the heavier, I guess, feeling. It's like very punchy, especially when it opens up, and a lot of like the other Exist albums open very melodically.
Sure. With
like usually clean singing and
sure.
melody, and this one just punches straight in.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Definitely intentional. I think we also wanted something that, because not that it was like really ever intentional, but it feels sometimes like Exist has been a little bit like in the know music kind of, if that makes sense. And and that's not, I don't think that was something that we ever like necessarily wanted for it. I think we just kind of did what was natural for us, and maybe we're just kind of space cadets and nerds by default, and so it just kind of comes out like that. And a lot, I realized like, okay, a lot of times if I think like musical phrases, I think of these really like these 8-bar sort of phrases or cells, and that's, for me, doesn't feel like out there, but maybe that's also because I'm giving it the amount of attention that I am, and so I think there was a little bit of an effort of like, okay, well, not that should be off the table, but if something really calls for it, or if it just is so right that you're just like, fuck yeah, we got to commit to this, then sure, we're not gonna write that off, but yeah, can we take these ideas and can we just make riffs that are more like 2 bars, 4 bars, and still make them feel just as interesting, and still make them things that we're still just excited about, and so yeah, the punching right into it. And the other thing is how that translates live, because it's like we've been on tour with bands like Obscura and Gorguts and Archspire and and it's like some of that stuff maybe takes a little more patience, and sometimes when you're up against that, I don't know if that's always, it's fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that, and I think we did okay with it, but we were kind of like, can we make something that maybe we can just put next to that, and just kind of see if we can get a little bit of a different reaction from that. And so, we got a few opportunities to play the songs live, and it's been really, really fun because of that. Like we just did those 4 shows, and we opened for Gorod back in January, which was before the album came out, but we still played those songs. And so yeah, it's been cool to do that, and to just try to make something that's still very much us, but kind of has that little more instant grat impact. And yeah, maybe we could play with some hardcore bands,
I'm not opposed to any of that. Okay. Hey. I miss the weird mixed bills. So I like when tours do that, when it's like Dying Fetus, hardcore band, like weird metalcore band, and then like, I don't know, maybe an emo band or something. But it's like, that's like a Dying Fetus thing. They always do weird shit like that anyway, so. But love Dying Fetus. So, but yeah, have you noticed any like difference in the reaction, instead of like maybe starting a set with like a very kind of slow burned song to just punching straight in? And was there any kind of response that you noticed was different?
I think so. I think that, it seems like it gets a little more of it seems like it gets a better response off the bat, but also like these last shows we did were kind of just like co-headliners with Pohawk. I don't know if you're familiar with Crazy Guitarist.
Okay.
Kind of, he's like more in like the Animals as Leaders, man, or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
But either way, they were very small shows, so a lot of the people that are coming already know us. But yeah, like when we opened for Gorod, it seemed like it seemed like the response was a little warmer off the bat, and yeah, maybe people moved around a little more. I don't know. I mean, that also could just be because we've been around a little longer. I don't really know. It's, I'm not sure how easily we can gauge the temperature of it, but it feels like something that, yeah, maybe we can come in and punch people in the face a little more, which is cool.
It's what you want.
Yeah, for that, I mean, I don't know. I like both things. I guess I like everything, but it's fun.
Some of this, some of that. Just sprinkle it in. You got to run on like a yes and narrative. It can't just be like either or. So.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I can blur the lines, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything's not this or that.
You gotta make people think it's like a death metal show, but then secretly it's a prog show. Surprise.
It's like what Defeated Sanity does, my buddies. And I've never heard them, but I think that's Defeated Sanity in a nutshell. They're a slam band, but like they're actually like the proggiest thing ever, just incognito.
That they should do really well then, because slam is like the biggest genre in the world right now.
Yeah.
That would be cool actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't. Like, I'm sure you've seen Sanguisugabogg and
I haven't actually. I mean, I've heard them, but I haven't live. Yeah.
Or
like
even bands like Undeath. I think Undeath does some of that too.
Yeah, they're like an old school death metal band. I think they're a little more like, kind of like Tombs of the Mutilated, Cannibal Corpse era. At least what I've heard from them sounds a little more like that. But
they're very Cannibal Corpse-ish.
Yeah.
But like those. There's another one that's like very big, not Torture. Yes.
Yeah. Blood Incantation, I feel like kind of falls a little in that. And Blood Incantation's pretty proggy. They're pretty,
they are
pretty psychedelic. They stretch. They don't, those guys don't give a fuck.
I feel like Sanguisugabogg can get psyche sometimes.
Good.
Like it is very much like big hardcore guy play, breakdown, slam. But then there's some substance there. Even in Volcano, I don't know if you've heard the other band that the drummer writes guitar for a band called Volcano, which is even more slam, but like it's more caveman, which is cool. But it's interesting to see like what bands they're also tied in with and how. Like, why is it that this band is the one that's gotten so big?
Sure. Yeah, so. I don't know what I think there's a lot of elements there, and it's probably also not the same across the board for everybody. I think there's reasons for things, and I think that's, I think sometimes there's a luck factor. I think there's also a lot that isn't luck, or at least in terms of, but again, I think it's different for everybody.
This might be a hot take.
Sure.
And I don't mean this to be disrespectful to anybody. Have you noticed bands that like meme bands are the ones that get a lot like Sanguisugabogg, I feel like is sort of an example, but they're very good.
And I think Blood Incantation's been like that too. And I do think that's probably a thing. I've never really looked too far into it, but I've noticed that for sure with Blood Incantation, where there were like a lot of, I know those guys. I've never really asked them about that, but I'm sure they'd, and it might even be like a guy who was, cause I think there was like that Insane Johnny guy, or there's this big Instagrammer who does, he did a lot of Blood Incantation memes. Like he just kept making them and kept referencing their album cover. And so it might not even be them doing it. I don't know. But yeah, I think that's definitely a thing. And it makes sense why that would work to kind of create this culture of that, or just kind of create an identity. But something that's funny and also just kind of beyond just, beyond just kind of like every death metal band, which sort of, maybe those things are hard to distinguish from each other otherwise, in terms of like an identity outside of the music.
Yeah. Like even I feel like Archspire has done that, but like in a
Yeah.
good way.
Oh, they're brilliant. They're brilliant at this stuff. They're like, yeah, because they did, and they made so many videos that kind of mock, like, or not mock, but sort of, I guess, parody in a way, just kind of big things in culture, like their, their own hot ones and their own, or like they did their own shreds video, where they, like, I feel like those guys have been brilliant with that, and they've done just maybe being in on like kind of the gimmick of okay, like we're like a ridiculously fast tech death band, like let's kind of play that up and just own the absurdity of that. Yeah, they've been very, very smart about that.
I remember them having a shirt last time they came through that said like 400 BPM or something like that.
Probably.
It was like, it just said like 400 BPM death metal. And I was like,
Yeah,
so you guys are just in on the joke. Like y'all are just going to,
they're totally. Yeah.
you're just going to write as fast as possible. And it's like, not even that it's like listenable music. You're just trying to play as fast as you humanly can.
Yeah, but I think it is listenable too, because people are. I mean, we kind of saw. I toured with them twice when they were before they really blew. You could see the hype level, and it's I think it's like they did all that, but they also walked the walk in terms of like they could crush that music live. Like they were really serious about it. They worked as a unit in a way that I've probably never seen with any other band that I've toured with, and then yeah, like they understand the joke, but they're also very serious about the thing that they do. Regardless of if you like it or not, it's like they still brought that thing live, and you could kind of see there was this energy of them playing on these other bills where they just there was some kind of wizardry there that just they had everybody captivated with their live show.
Yeah, I remember seeing them live. I was like, I mean, that's crazy that y'all can play that well.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen lots of bands write less difficult to play music and not execute live. So good on them for real. Like,
Especially in tech death, where there is a lot of stuff that there's a lot of editing going on, and I don't even think I don't even think those guys knew how to like engineer themselves at that point. At least, like, it was like they legit were the thing that just goes in the studio and just just plays the parts like for real. So yeah, it is impressive.
yeah, I love that. But I remember seeing even Dean, like just Dean's YouTube stuff. I was like, this guy alone makes me like this band. So
yeah, he's a really smart guy, and he's pretty funny, and yeah, they've kind of got the whole package.
Yeah. I mean, just ride that wave. Just ride it. What does Exist have coming up, and even what do you have with I don't know if Death to All has anything coming up as well.
Well, we have a few things for both, but nothing till next year. So I'm actually like off the road for the rest of the year, which is kind of awesome because I've been pretty go for the last like year and a half. So nothing. I guess none of this has been announced yet, but Exist has like we're working on. Well, actually, there is one thing we've announced. We announced a Vancouver show, so we're doing this Glacial Metal Festival with there's a bunch of other bands on there. Bonded by Blood, which is like a thrash band, and then who else? And then Four Stroke Baron, which is a band that I'm really into. They're kind of this weird, like, I always describe it as Devin Townsend meets Tears for Fears.
That's cool.
And so it's probably a little early for me to say, but like we're working on something with them. And we're planning like a run off of that for February.
Nice.
So there's that. And then, Death All has a few other things in the works that I don't think anything's like locked down, but there's a few things. It's not going to be a ton for next year, but there's a few things in the spring that I work on. So, and then Exist, we're working on music as well. So, trying to, like, there's a bunch of songs that are either written or kind of partially written, and we're just kind of figuring out exactly what we're going to do with that, because we're not in a label contract anymore. So,
Okay.
I think the question now is, like, do we do like an EP kind of singles approach, and do things independently and just kind of see how that goes? Or do we, sign with somebody else right now? Or, I think at least we'll test the waters and kind of see what interest is out there. But there's a good chance it'll end up being like an EP sort of thing. So we'll see what happens with that.
It's nice with everybody's attention span now. It's so much like more common to do a single or EP or just makes a lot of sense.
I mean, I love albums, but I think also just now maybe we're in a position where it's like, okay, well, if you're totally free right now, why not just try? And because there's the idea of like, okay, well, it's cool to just make things faster and just be a little more present with that. That's a luxury or at least something that's different than what we've done for like the last 10 years. So there's that, and then there's but yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll test the waters and see what bites, but I think that's very likely what we'll end up trying to do, and it's already moving kind of fast. So I don't want to. I think there's like a chance maybe we'll have some new music out next year, but we'll see. Maybe I'll shoot myself in the foot by saying that.
Oh no! Well, let's knock on wood.
Yeah.
Well, Max, I hope that everything coming up goes really well. It's been wonderful talking with you. Thank you very much for joining.
Yeah, thank you, man. And I got Brandywine.
Yeah, dude, check out Brandywine. I just have one last question for you before we go.
Sure.
What's your favorite city for beans and breakdowns?
My favorite city for beans and for both of those things?
Yeah.
Well, I'm just gonna say Baltimore because
good answer.
Okay, sweet.
What's the show spot when you're at home? What's the best venue to see a show?
I don't know, because I guess it depends on the vibe you're kind of looking for. I feel like most of the bigger shows I go to now are like Soundstage or Fillmore, which is not really in Baltimore. It's like it's kind of more DC. So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of good little things that happen at the Metro Gallery. Actually, this place we just played with Exist, Mobtown Ballroom, they're just starting to maybe do metal shows there, and I thought it was a really, really cool space. So I'm kind of hopeful that becomes more of a regular thing.
That's cool. Baltimore shows for hardcore, I don't know how it is for metal, but for hardcore can be difficult to get sometimes because there's just so many bands and so much going on there. So I think maybe it's a lack of venue.
Our market is essentially the same as DC, so it's like you usually probably only do one or the other. And Philly's right up the road too, so there's a lot of condensed stuff that maybe you don't want to hit it all every time. But
rather play Baltimore, honestly. Get some crab cakes, some ceremony.
There you go.
Love the crab cakes. Well, Max, thanks again. Wish you luck in the upcoming year.
Cool. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Cheers. Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge shout out to Max for hanging out on the podcast. Be sure to check out Hijacking the Zeitgeist, the newest release from Exist, and keep an eye out for any upcoming dates from both Exist and The Death to All. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.